When the war began, a Canadian friend of mine who had enlisted came to stay with us. One evening he suggested we go down to the Palace Theatre. We didn't know what was on, but it sounded like a real treat, so I agreed. I brought along my beloved fiancée, we were engaged at the time. When we arrived, we were stunned to discover that Vesta Tilley was performing and recruiting. My fiancée's face fell. She'd heard the stories. Tilley was dressed in a dazzling silver gown with a Union Jack draped across her shoulders. She opened with her most famous song, "We don't want to lose you, but we think you ought to go." As she sang, she moved through the audience, tapping men on the shoulder. One by one they stood, followed her to the stage and enlisted. Then she tapped my shoulder. Well, as the song said, for king and country, I could hardly refuse. I got up and walked to the stage. My fiancée was heartbroken. She could barely look at me for days. I tried to lighten the mood with a wink and said, "Don't worry, I'll be home by Christmas." A few weeks later, in my new uniform and with my army allowance burning a hole in my pocket, I headed out with some of the lads. We were feeling proud, almost heroic, until we saw a young lad walking alone. Couldn't have been more than 15. 2 women passed him. One looked at us, then at him, and said, "Why aren't you in the army with the rest of the boys?" He mumbled something, but before he could say much else, one of them pulled a white feather from her handbag and shoved it up his nose. Just as I was about to step in, a recruitment officer darted across the road, threw his arm around the lad and said, "Don't worry, son, let's get you to the drill hall. We'll soon prove you're not a coward. Just remember to tell the doctor you're 18. That young lad joined my regiment, and eventually we made it to France, thank God. I'd never been on a ship before, and I was sick as a dog the whole way. Once we arrived, we were marched straight to the front lines. I felt a bit of comfort seeing familiar faces, lads I'd gone to school with, a few from our local football team, our very own Pals Battalion. The recruitment officers had committed to keeping everyone together as a way of getting men to join up in groups, but any sense of pride vanished the moment we approached the trenches. It was like we'd marched into hell. As we went in, the wounded and dying were coming out, men without legs, men without arms. One poor bloke had half his face hanging off. I couldn't believe he was still breathing. No one spoke. Then the class clown from school broke the silence. He looked around and said, "Well, gents, they certainly didn't show that on the recruitment posters." Some of us laughed, but it was a nervous laugh. Others just lit another cigarette, trying to calm the shaking in their hands.